In August, we set a record for gold production at over 20,000 ounces for the month. But more importantly, in July and August, we set records for tons of ore stacked on the leach pad.
Hello to viewers tuning into Assay TV. We're catching up with Victoria Gold, the Yukon's leading gold producer developer company. And I'm very pleased to be speaking once again with John McConnell, who's president and CEO of the company. John, welcome back to the show.
Good day. Pleasure to be here.
Great. So we're talking about your flagship Eagle gold mine at the Dublin Gulch property in Yukon, and you've had your Q2 results back in August. Can you just recap for the viewers some of the highlights from those results?
Yeah, I think the key highlight is, we did put out last week the results for July and August, and I know that's unusual to put out results monthly as opposed to quarterly, but we just felt that going into the Denver Gold Show, we needed to put out the results because they were indeed very good. So in August, we set a record for gold production at over 20,000 ounces for the month. But more importantly, in July and August, we set records for tons of ore stacked on the leach pad.
Right.
And because this is a leaching operation, it's it sounds simple, but it's not. The more ore you get stacked on the pad in a month and you get area under leach, the more gold you get. So it's just a very good indication that the mining and processing is turned the corner and is going well.
Excellent. Yeah, glad to hear that. So just for clarity on the technical aspects then, and going into that stacking, how long does the ore sit on the heap leach pads for? Could it be quite some time? I guess it depends how much you're piling up.
Yeah, this is a valley leach, so we work our way up the valley, and essentially the ore is always under leach. But in our case, we get about 80% of the gold off in the first 50 days of leaching. And then the balance of the gold comes off probably over another 200 days or something like that. But, it will continue to leach for the life of the mine.
Excellent. So your project 250K then, that's setting some ambitious targets. Talk us through what's going on there.
Yeah, it's, now that the mine is up and running at design capacity of plus or minus 200,000 ounces per year, I challenged the guys to look at opportunities to go to 250,000 ounces per year. We've looked at two things, and we're really addressing the low-hanging fruit here with this. Number one is go from stacking 9 months a year to stacking 11 months a year. So not quite year-round stacking yet. We're going to be careful. And the coldest month, which is January, we still will refrain from stacking.
Yep.
That adds roughly 30 to 35,000 ounces per year.
Yep.
The second area is there's a shear zone that runs through the center of the ore body. We've always known that. It's mineralized, same grades as the rest of the deposit. But when we drill and blast it, it breaks very fine and actually causes us problems in the crushing circuit because there's too much fines. So we're looking at putting a screening deck between the secondary and the tertiary crushers, screen off that very fine material, and put it back on the overland conveyor to the leach pad without going through the tertiary crusher system. That would give us another 20% capacity through the system and add another 25 to 35,000 ounces per year. So pretty simple, 200,000 plus 25 plus 25 gets us to 250. In 2022, we'll go down to 1 month of not stacking. And in terms of the screening plant, we've done the preliminary engineering now. We've moved into detailed engineering, and we'll start ordering the long lead equipment in October We plan to start construction in May, June, and July, and should have the whole system up and running in August of 2022.
Excellent. I just want to pick on what your first part of that strategy to ramp up to 250K, where you're talking about adding months, because these have historically been the winter months that you don't drill. How is it now possible that you can? Is it just simply a case of changing the technical setup, the equipment, and making it happen, or are you very much dependent on the weather conditions?
No, it's really getting experience with the leach pad. What you don't want to do is freeze a portion of the leach pad, because it's very difficult to unfreeze it. So we've got 2 winters under our belts now, and are very comfortable going to 11 months of stacking per year. We also monitor what Kinross is doing at Fort Knox on their leach pad. They started the same way we have, stacking only during the warmer months of the year. But for the last 5 years, they've been stacking year round. So, again, we're quite comfortable going to that. And hopefully by 2025, we go to year round stacking.
Yep, excellent. That's good. Okay, so what does this do to the second half production? The pressure's on to some degree. You said it yourself, you sort of challenged you guys and your team, but does this add a lot more pressure that your shareholders are now going to be holding you to?
I don't think so. We're still tracking against our guidance, and we've always said, because we didn't stack the coldest months of the year, our production would be skewed to the second half.
Yeah.
So
okay.
On a month-to-month basis, we're bang on our budget. So it's no greater pressure. We just mine to our budget.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's a good point to come on to the financings then. Presumably liquidity is good. You're generating cash and selling gold, which is great. And you had a deal where Kerr Mining took on became a larger shareholder in the company. Could you just update viewers on the situation there, and if that has any impacts on the strategy from here?
Yeah, so in terms of the original financing for the construction of Eagle, it was led by a private equity firm, Orion Mine Finance.
Yep.
And over time, they purchased Osisko's block and Electrum's block. So they actually had a 38% interest in Victoria. They were great shareholders, but being a private equity firm, at some point, they're expected to give money back to their limited partners. And so they chose to sell 17.8% of their holding in Victoria to Coeur Mining. So Coeur is like Orion and many large institutions, a large shareholder of Victoria now. Yep. Where we go next is kind of up to them. But the thing we're doing is, Project 250. I haven't talked yet about Project 2040. We've got a very large exploration program this year. So if Coeur is going to make an offer to our shareholders for the balance of the shares, we want to maximize that number. So, we're doing everything we can to demonstrate value for the market.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, great. Let's pick on a couple of the things you mentioned there then. Project 2040, firstly, take us through, what you're doing with the additional drilling and extending the mine life within Eagle.
Yeah, we've always known that the ore body was open at depth. Current, feasible pit goes down to 350 meters, but that was done at $1,250 gold. So at higher gold prices, once the debt is paid off, the economics change. So, I wouldn't say we'd planned to do it this year, but Coeur kind of forced our hand. So we have now drilled off the deposit down to 850 meters. We're still waiting for assays, but we'll have some news flow on that certainly by the end of the year.
Excellent.
And that's to take the life of the mine out to 2040, so adding another 10 years to the mine life.
Yep. Excellent. Look forward to hearing about how that goes. With regards to other exploration, do you have any updates on any other targets within the Dublin Gulch property?
We're very busy. Our budget this year is $12.5 million, probably the largest exploration program in the Yukon. And our main focus is a target called Raven out to the east. It sits within another large granodiorite intrusive with very similar characteristics to the intrusive that hosts Eagle. We made a discovery there in 2019 called Raven. 2020, we had a limited program because of COVID. But now we're currently out there again. We have 3 drills running, and we've extended the strike length of the deposit to over 1 kilometer and width of half a kilometer. And we've drilled it down to 180 meters. The mineralization starts right on surface. It appears to be probably double the grade of Eagle at close to 1.5 grams. So, you start adding ounces pretty quickly. And depending on the results of this year's campaign, we would hope to publish, our first resource on Raven. I'd like to say by the end of the year, but with the problems assay labs are having, I probably should say Q1 of 2022, just give ourselves a little more room.
Yeah, quite sensible. From a lot of the companies I'm discussing with, there's a lot of challenges with the assay labs, but also on the ground as well, things like, finding diamond drills, finding crews, that kind of thing, not to mention forest fires across large swathes of Canada. How have things been on the ground for you in both the exploration part, but also your production assets?
Yeah, finding crews or drills has not been a problem. It's finding people,
right?
We always knew staffing a mine, finding skilled labor, in terms of mechanics and millwrights would be a challenge. But we didn't ever plan that unskilled labor would be a challenge. But it is, the diamond drilling industry is experiencing the same thing. They can find drillers, but they can't find helpers. So, and that's partly because of COVID and, government programs that essentially pay people to stay home.
Yeah, indeed.
To finish up on exploration, we do have 2 other targets, a target called Lynx, which is south of Raven. It's interesting in that, it was worked by a former company, Strata Gold. We remined the data, so to speak, last winter and came to the conclusion that it was being explored improperly. So we applied, what we've learned from Eagle and Raven. And we think that is something very interesting. And we have 1 drill turning there. And then to the west of Eagle, we have a silver target called Rex Peso. This was a former producer going back to the 1960s. And so we decided, well, let's have a closer look at it and put a few drill holes in there. And it's a nice target because it's very close to Eagle. And if we find something interesting, we can continue drilling well into the winter there.
Yeah, excellent optionality for investors looking at the resource expansion across the portfolio. That's great. I wanted to just touch on, lastly, as you're the Yukon's newest producer now, one thing that a lot of investors are looking at is the ESG performance of a company and whether there's anything that's been changing in terms of the discussions that you have with your shareholders now or indeed what you're doing in terms of initiatives as a company?
Yeah, I'd say we have those discussions, and in terms of ESG, I would say we are one of the leaders in the business, despite being a junior.
Yep.
I always measure a company performance by their safety record. At Eagle, we have one of the best safety records of any mine in Canada. So I'm very proud of that. In terms of community, we have a IBA, or Impact Benefits Agreement, with the local First Nation. We contribute through that, but also directly to the community and to the Yukon at large. We have a charity called Every Student Every Day. It's an independent charity, but we're the largest contributor to it, and it's to put together community-based programs to encourage children to attend school, which is a real problem in the Yukon. And then on the environment side, I live in the Yukon. It's my backyard. I enjoy the outdoors. We certainly don't want to screw up the environment. And I'm pleased to say we have not had a single major spill on site after 2 years of operations. Where we do fall down a little bit on ESG is the actual reporting of it.
Right.
And we're in the process of correcting that now, and we'll get out an annual report early next year.
Yep. It's one of the evolving challenges as a junior company for building that capacity in as the deliverables and reporting standards change and become more and more stringent. But that's great to hear. I just wanted to recap then, you're in a great position, production's going very well, and you're finding potentially expanding the resource as well. And if you think about, when we talk to investors with one-to-one and with the Assay, they're all looking at sort of developer to producers in the sort of mid-tier bracket. They believe that there's a lot of M&A going to be coming in this area, as opposed to what's happened already in the top tier. And I just wanted to understand, how much interest are you getting right now from new investors, new shareholders? Are people ringing your phone like crazy at the moment?
Well, I wouldn't say like crazy, but in terms of our shareholder registry, we've had 3 or 4 new shareholders buy in the market, Victoria stock. We welcome that. As well, we've had a number of mid-tier and seniors call us looking to sign CAs and get into a data room and start doing some due diligence. And we've been accommodating a number of those. And then, we're not going to sit still and wait for somebody to come and acquire us. As I mentioned before, we started taping, we had a team at the Denver Gold Forum focused on business development. So we're starting to look at opportunities where we might come into a company and take a toehold, or we may acquire that company and, move from being a single asset producer to, a multi-asset producer.
Yep. Fantastic. That's great to hear about, growth and coming back onto the agenda. Okay, John, that's great. Really good to get an update on Victoria Gold. Thanks for talking us through that. And thanks for joining Assay TV today.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Good interview.
Cheers.